Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the most remarkable and controversial figures in world history. He was a man who rose from obscurity to become the Emperor of France, conquering most of Europe in the process. His reign changed the course of history, but how did it all begin? And what was life really like for the people living under his rule? Born on Corsica in 1769, Napoleon Bonaparte was an outsider and ambitious young officer who quickly rose through the ranks of the French military during the chaos of the French Revolution. But it wasn't just the revolution itself that would shape his future. It was the turmoil and instability that followed wars against monarchies across Europe, internal uprisings, and the rise of radical factions that would give Napoleon the perfect opportunity to seize power. By 1796, Napoleon was commanding the French army in Italy, where his brilliance as a strategist quickly became apparent. His victories over Austrian and Italian forces cemented his reputation as one of the greatest military minds of his time. But despite his military success, it was in 1799 when his most audacious move would change everything. In that year, amidst the chaos, Napoleon staged a coup, overthrowing the Directory, the ineffective ruling body of France. He became first consul, the most powerful man in the country, but he didn't stop there. By 1804, Napoleon declared himself Emperor of the French. With his coronation at Notre Dame Cathedral, he not only solidified his rule over France, but he also set the stage for one of the most ambitious empires Europe had ever seen. Napoleon's reign marked the beginning of a nearly continuous series of conflicts known as the Napoleonic Wars, a fight for dominance in Europe that would last from 1803 until his final defeat at Waterloo in 1815. The French emperor fought against a coalition of monarchies, including Britain, Russia, Austria, and Prussia, each determined to stop his expansion. Under Napoleon, France itself underwent sweeping reforms. The Napoleonic Code, his civil code, was introduced, establishing equality before the law, property rights, and a secular legal system. The economy was restructured, and Napoleon's continental system aimed to cripple Britain by blocking British goods from entering Europe. However, his wars required vast resources. To maintain his empire, he needed money, soldiers, and supplies, which meant that the French population, already suffering from war fatigue, faced severe hardships. Napoleon's Italian campaign was one of his earliest successes. He defeated the Austrians and established satellite states across Italy. The Cisalpine Republic in northern Italy and the Cispadane Republic were restructured under French control. The great cities of Milan, Venice, and Rome all fell under French dominance. For the Italian people, life under Napoleon was a mixture of opportunity and hardship. He abolished the old feudal system, modernized local administration, and promoted some economic growth. However, many Italians resented the French occupation, especially as Napoleon looted Italian art and treasures to fill the museums of Paris. In the German states, Napoleon's victories over Austria and Prussia in 1805 and 1806 led to the creation of the Confederation of the Rhine, a coalition of German-speaking states that were forced to ally with France. His influence spread across the region, with many states forced into his wars and his economic system. For the German people, life under Napoleon was often oppressive. Forced conscription, heavy taxes, and constant military campaigns drained resources and morale. But his reforms, like the introduction of a more efficient legal system and the end of the old feudal order, left a lasting impact on German governance. Perhaps nowhere was the resistance more fierce than in Spain. In 1808, Napoleon's attempt to install his brother Joseph Bonaparte on the throne sparked a massive resistance movement known as the Peninsular War. Spanish guerrilla forces, with the crucial support of Britain, fought a brutal and relentless war against the French occupation. The Spanish people suffered greatly. The occupation was characterized by mass executions, forced conscription, and the destruction of towns by both sides. The Peninsular War would become one of Napoleon's most costly and unpopular campaigns, a bleeding wound that drained his empire of men and money. But Napoleon's greatest defeat, the mistake that would seal his fate, came in Russia in 1812. Seeking to extend his dominance, he launched an invasion with the Grande Army, a force of over 600,000 soldiers. However, the brutal Russian winter and the scorched earth tactics employed by the Russian army completely decimated the French forces. The endless snow and lack of supplies turned the campaign into a nightmare. Of the hundreds of thousands of soldiers that marched into Russia, Fewer than 100,000 returned. The Great Retreat from Moscow marked the beginning of the end for Napoleon's empire. After being exiled to the island of Elba in 1814, Napoleon made a stunning comeback. He escaped and returned to France in 1815 for a brief, dramatic period known as the 100 Days. He quickly regained power and assembled an army to face the growing coalition of European forces determined to stop him once and for all. But despite his return, his position was precarious. His forces clashed with the British and Prussians at the legendary Battle of Waterloo in June 1815. On June 18, 1815, Napoleon's army was decisively defeated at Waterloo by the combined forces of the Duke of Wellington and Gebhard von Blücher. Napoleon's reign finally came to an end. He was exiled once again, this time to the remote and isolated island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. Napoleon died there in 1821. His empire shattered, but his legacy endured. Though his empire fell, Napoleon's influence lasted far beyond his death. His legal reforms, particularly the Napoleonic Code, became the foundation for many modern legal systems across Europe and even beyond. The ideals of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity lived on, even if the man who embodied their complex legacy was gone. Napoleon's rise and fall remind us of the delicate balance between ambition and overreach. His empire may have crumbled, but the world he shaped is one we still live in today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth historical stories.